And thank you so much for coming to our workshop tonight, Living in Uncertain Times. I want to thank Loran Thompson, who is our facilitator tonight with the Wellness Edge, for offering to lead this course for us, just acknowledging that life is often riddled and has stress present. And then there are times like now where there's global goings on that enhance and intensify levels of stress. And so it's so helpful for us to have techniques and regular practices of decompressing and handling stress in other ways. So thank you, Loran, for bringing this to us. We're really grateful.
Thank you, Caedmon.
Yeah. And so I'm going to hand it over to Dan to open us up with a word of prayer, and then we'll go right into our session. Thanks for being here.
Thank you,
and
Caedmon.
Please mute yourself unless you're called on by the facilitator to speak.
Great reminder. Thank you, Caedmon. And let us pray. Loving God, thank you for the time that we can invest in ourselves, even right now, in ways that we can learn how to care for ourselves during these uncertain times. I thank you for the hope and the peace that we have in you. On Christ, the solid rock, I thank you for the hope and the surety that we have with you, and that you have us part of a community of faith that supports each other. Thank you that we can share our gifts even right now. And I ask that you would bless Loran as she is going to share with us from her experience and her heart. And thank you that we will all benefit, and may the world be a better place as a result of this time together. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you so much, Pastor Dan, for the prayer. Thank you, Caedmon, for setting this all up. I really appreciate the opportunity, because we are definitely living in uncertain times. We're living in a world right now where things are changing at a dramatic rate, and we have to be paying attention to our stress levels, our self-care, and everything going on. Because when you think about it, we've got so many different things going on, from the coronavirus to racial tension, and people are talking about the new normal already, and I don't think we're even there yet. We're in a place where it's like an earthquake. The ground has not stopped shaking yet, right? It's like when we have an earthquake, we run for cover. It ends. We make sure that we're okay. We make sure our house is okay, and we get back to normal. And with everything going on right now in our world, the ground is still shaking. So it's really uncertain times for us, and we have to, nothing about the world feels normal right now. And so why would we expect that of ourselves? So I'm gonna ask you guys to just do a little paradigm shift and think about doing things a little bit differently. I've been doing these trainings for over 25 years. I have many tricks up my sleeves to deal with stress, and I'm struggling right now. People are worried, people are grieving, people are anxious, people are depressed, and they're struggling. And if we don't figure out how to be kinder to ourselves, take really good care of ourselves, we're going to be struggling right now. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. When we talk about living in those uncertain times, how does that change impact us? How do we develop some kind of a resiliency around it? How do we build up those strategies to deal with stress? And I love it, educating people, but unless you guys take something we talk about today and utilize it, it's like putting an aspirin on your head and thinking it's going to help your headache. So we got to have some action behind it. So I want you to have a paper and pen handy, and we're going to have some fun in the process, and also get to some depths of some real vulnerable things, and being transparent with each other. It's an important time for that. So when we talk about change, change can be something that we choose. It could be a marriage or a divorce or a new job or leaving a job. Those are changes that we choose ourselves. And the things that we're going through now, we didn't choose. We didn't choose a pandemic. We didn't choose the racial tension that we have going on in our world. We didn't choose those things. And our lives changed dramatically. Not just one change, not just two change, but everything changed. whether we're working remotely, whether we're living with families 24 hours a day, or we're living alone, whether we go to the stores with our masks on or we're protesting in the streets with everything going on, everything has changed. And we have to be flexible and ride that earthquake and the ground hasn't stopped shaking yet. And that's the only way that we can learn to be resilient through this. So when we talk about it, why is change so hard? It makes us feel unsafe and it threatens us. We are creatures of habit. We're creatures of routine, and we like things to be the same. For myself, I've been doing live trainings, usually in person. I've been doing it for 25 years. I know how to do them. I know what to expect. I know when the mistakes come up, what to do. And when this went all on remote, because I do everything online now, it was a real learning curve for me. And I was making mistakes. I was losing emails, important emails for webinars. I was not doing well at all. And I had a little technology breakdown in the midst of things. I tried not to take it out on Allison or anything, but it was pretty tough. So when we don't feel safe, we go into, and we feel threatened, we go into that fight or flight response. And everybody, how many people online would say that they are under stress right now, the last few months? If you didn't raise your hand, I'd like some advice after class, or you're lying. We live in a stressful society normally, and then you put the pandemic and everything else on top of it. It's pretty scary time. So again, we have to figure out how to be resilient, figure out how to take care of ourselves better, and find some good tools to get through this together, right? As part of it is that when we talk about positive self-talk, I think about being kind to myself. When I make mistakes, when I get more snappy than usual, when I feel depressed or having exhausted from too many meetings or webinars, I have to be kind to myself, that positive self-talk. How am I talking to myself, and how am I speaking to other people? I'm trying to stay more, not just necessarily positive, but kind, right? Connecting with others, and I want to make sure the people that I'm connecting with are, that they have my back, that I have their back. We don't, people that if they're, we get stuck in that, what I call that negative worry loop. And it's really easy to be, we all have good reason to be worried, to be grieving, to be sad, to be frustrated. We just don't want to stay there. So we want to just be constantly looking for the connections that we have. Are we looking for solutions? Are we looking to support each other in a supportive way and not to put each other down or stay in that complaining place, which it's easy to do because there's lots to be upset about, right? And then having some kind of sense of humor and laughing at ourselves or each other, in a not a bullying way or not putting somebody down, but just having fun through all this. And then of course, always practicing that self-care. I practice self-care. I got into this business because many years ago, I was not the healthiest. I didn't take the best care of myself, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And I wasn't doing well at all. And I had to make some big changes. And part of that was I had to start taking care of myself differently. And I have to practice what I preach every day. And when I don't, I'm in trouble. And right now, my normal self-care practices are not enough. So I'm telling you, it's just, if you're struggling with worry or fear or anxiety or depression or irritability or any of those things, most people are. I do these webinars every day, and most people that I talk to are struggling, and they feel guilty about it. And they feel like they're not strong enough or they're not doing the right things. And we need a paradigm shift with that, to think that it's not that we're not strong enough, it's just too much. It's just too much, that's all. And we need to make up our game with our self-care strategies. So where do we learn all that from? Well, don't cheat. Don't anybody cheat on that one. We learn from our families. And how's that working out for you? In my family, I'm the cute one on the left. Do you see the resemblance? I know I was a cute baby. Don't be jealous. Don't, and I know somebody's going to want that hat. I know it. But in my family, I was raised to ignore things or make a lot of drama out of it. How'd that work out for me? It was like putting a cork in the volcano and thinking it wasn't going to explode. And then if you look on the right-hand side of that picture, what is down there? It's a beer. I swear I was not drinking it at that time, but knowing my family, they were probably making margaritas in the background. We had alcohol in my family, and that was a perfect storm for ignoring things and making a lot of drama out of it. And that's where I got into trouble as a young adult. I went down a bad path. I have a history of alcoholism in my family. And at the age of 29, I got sober and was really pretty sick and had to make some big changes. So that's part of my history. So you guys have a little bit of background about me. And this is still a good friend of my family's. He's adorable. Somebody said, someone feels powerless. Let me just close this. Somebody says, or sometimes feeling powerless or like I'm failing. Yes, that is so true, because somebody said feeling powerless, like if thanks for naming these things is normal. Yes, it's because when we feel powerless, we feel like we don't have control. We don't have, that we're helpless. And we want to be not just feeling helpless or powerless, we want to feel empowered and having some kind of control in a constructive way, right? And that's really important, having that. So if we think about how we look at life, how do you look at life? Do you look at it half full, the glass half full, or the glass half empty? If you guys want to put that in chat, or just say, how do you look at life, glass half full or glass half empty? And what I find is that the people who wonder whether the glass is half empty or half full miss the point. The glass is refillable. I like that. Somebody said depends on the day, that's for sure. Right? And also, I like this one, that an optimist is someone who figures that taking a step backwards after taking a step forward is not a disaster, it's a cha-cha. So we're always finding ways to, like I said, bring in a little humor in that and figuring out how to refill our glass in the process. So when we assess our own resilience, I love that word. Somebody said half full, and I like that. Depends on the day. How do we assess our own resilience? We have to have some kind of a strong social network. And again, people that have, supportive people that have our backs is really important. Also, do we easily adapt to change? I don't think people are easily adapting to any of this right now because it's too much at one time. So we have to kind of be kind to ourselves if we're not adapting easily. It's kind of normal right now, but we want to be resilient and we want to ride that wave of the earthquake in the midst of it. Can I laugh at myself in the midst of it when I'm making mistakes? I don't always do the best with that, but I try. I give myself a hard time, but I have to laugh every once in a while and bring some humor into things. It also kicks in the serotonin levels, makes you feel better when you're having a bad day, right? So assessing where we're at, and how are you identifying your emotions? Allison and I were talking about it earlier, saying most of us, when I do live trainings, I would go up to people, shake people's hands. I'd introduce myself and say, how you doing? Fine. How you doing? Great. We don't really share what's going on. We share about, like a iceberg. We share about 10% of who we really are, and the other 90% below it is our vulnerabilities and our stressors and our worries and our fears and all those things that we go through. And I think this is, and we were talking about it earlier, I think it's time that we need to step up and be more vulnerable and be more honest. Especially we have to have boundaries with certain people, and we can't go off on things, but to just say, you know what, I'm really struggling. Because what that does is it gives you the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm struggling too. And there's a camaraderie with that, and not to stay in our struggles and figure out how to work through that, but to be able to voice it and give it a voice. Because if we don't give it a voice, I don't want to ignore my struggles, and I don't want to obsess on them. but I want to be solution oriented. And if there's not a solution for one of the stressors I might be going through, how am I taking care of myself within that time? So identifying our emotions and being honest with ourselves and with others. Are we taking care of our health, mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually? And do we view the experiences that we're going through as an opportunity? I can't always get to opportunity when I'm struggling. I'm having a hard time. Like I said, when I had that technology breakdown, I was giving up. I'm like, I'm not doing this anymore, and I'm never going to be able to figure it out. And that was just one place I was at. And then I had to figure out, okay, get back up, make that 20th phone call and ask, okay, how do I do this one more time? And now I'm starting to get into a little bit of normalcy with it and turning things into opportunities, like this thing with George Floyd and all the racial tension is an opportunity for reform with each other, with our legislation, with our police departments, and with the pandemic of learning to be, being more supportive of each other, being more there for each other, taking better care of ourselves, being more vulnerable with each other. So there is opportunity. Sometimes it's hard to see it when we're in the midst of our pain or our struggles. Now this is the fun part. When we're, like I said, everybody's under stress these days. I don't find too many people that are not. And stress is a wonderful tool. It gets us into action. It gets us into motion. We just don't want to stay there for too long, right? So all stress is a response to our demands, our perceived demands and pressures. So one way that you might look at stress might be totally different than the way I do. You might love horses and grew up loving them, and I might have fallen off of one as a child and they scare the hell out of me. That's a different response to stress. And it depends on how we were raised again, right? And what happens is when we perceive a stressor, our body goes through into fight or flight, which means that our body goes through a lot of changes to deal with the stressor in front of us so we can run or fight from the saber-tooth tiger. Well, how many people have seen a saber-tooth tiger in real life? If you've seen a real life, you look really good for your age. They've been extinct for many years. But our stressors are our saber-tooth tigers. So whatever stress you have on your plate today, those are your saber-tooth tigers. And it's a silent killer if we stay there for too long. Do you know we're only supposed to stay in the stress response 7% of the day? How long are we there now? About 80. And we have evolutionarily not been able to evolve to be able to deal with that kind of stress. So that's why they call it the silent killer, because we might not see the stressors that we have going on at the time. And what does it affect? It affects our physical, our emotion, excuse me. It affects us physically, emotionally, cognitively, and spiritually, right? And if you think about it on a physical level, how does stress affect you physically? It can affect every cell in the body. It can affect our stomach, our hearts, our circulatory system, our skin, anything you can think of as stress is affected by. Emotionally, we can get irritable, depressed, anxious, frustrated. Cognitively, what happens is the rational, logical adult part of the brain, which is right by the forehead, shuts down. We get forgetful, we get distracted, we get overwhelmed, and we don't always make the best decisions in that place. And that's where when we get, has anybody ever been in a relationship before? And have you ever acted like a 5-year-old in that relationship and not the cute kind? That's what I'm talking about. I'm in my 60s, and if Allison says something to me a certain way, I can act like a 5-year-old and not the cute kind really quickly because that rational, logical adult part of my brain shut down. And then I'm not thinking straight. I might say something inappropriate. I might do something inappropriate. I might think inappropriate thoughts. Somebody said, can anyone really be stress-free for 93, let me see. I'm blocking you off here. Somebody said, can anyone really be stress-free for 93% of the day? That would be lovely. I wish. We work on it. We work on it. Thanks for bringing that up. So what happens when I do live trainings, I have a stack of 3 big books with me, and I put them on my belly and my chest. And I ask for, and I have posted stickers on the books, and I ask the audience what their stressors are, and people will tell me financial, relationship issues, and you can put that in the chat if you want anything in the chat. It could be health issues, all the stressors that we have, and I put those on my books. And I ask the audience, are they heavy? And if you get that visual in your mind, it's not too heavy, but what happens if I don't put them down by the end of the day? They're pretty heavy, right? What's my energy level going to be like? Pretty low. Exactly, Pastor Dan. What's my attitude going to be like? Pretty cranky. And if somebody comes to talk to me and I have my books, I'll just give you an example. If my books are in my arms and I have my books in my arms, what am I thinking about? My books. I'm not available for you. In fact, if I see you, you might annoy me, not you guys online. But if I tend to be I'm patient, I'm kind, I'm a good listener, I'm compassionate. When I have stress on my plate and when I have books in my arms, I can be none of those things. I don't see you. And if I see you, you might annoy me, not you guys. Somebody said, this is true of chronic pain also. Yes, it's very true of chronic pain. Chronic pain is debilitating. It's tiring. Chronic pain can be emotional pain. It can be physical pain. It can be whatever kind of pain is debilitating and really exhausting. So we have that in those kind of cases, it's really important to be in self-care all the time. I have to be in self-care for my own sanity, for Allison, for my health, for all of it, right? Now, one of the things I want you guys to write down for me. Oh, so Levi, I see your dog. She's adorable. She's a cutie. One of the things, what I want you guys to write down is to write down, put your books to the side. So if I figuratively, literally put those books to the side, what it does is that it gives me more opportunity to be empowered and have more energy. And also I can be more focused on solutions to my books rather than being exhausted and overwhelmed. Does that make sense? So figuratively and literally setting those books to the side is really important. And then I'll teach you guys some tools also that can really help the cognitive part when we get to forgetful, distracted, overwhelmed, exhausted. I'm going to give you a couple tools that can really be helpful with that also in the midst of it. So can anybody relate to those physical, emotional, cognitive, or spiritual stress symptoms? Do you guys have any of those that you can relate to that I've been talking about? And you might have 3 books on your plate. You might have 20 books on your plate and your arms. And that changes every day. Some days we have 3, some days we have 20. So a lot of times when people get, these days, what they're talking about is that there's more domestic violence right now. There's more drug and alcohol abuse going on. National Hotline is getting 1,000% more calls. Why? Because we have way too much on our plate right now. And we're not doing the best with it. I have lots of tricks up my sleeve and I'm not doing the best with it. So our world is struggling. And the better that we can take care of ourselves, the more that we can put our books to the side, the more we can be in that self-care place. When I put my books to the side, now I'm present and available for me first, and now I can be available for you. The biggest gift we can give each other is our presence. Have you ever talked to somebody when they're overly stressed? They're not available for you. Have you ever talked to somebody who has their technology in their hand? You feel unimportant, not special, that what you have to say is really not important. And we have to learn how to be more present for each other. It's the biggest gift we can give each other. Now, some of the strategies we'll talk about, and like I said, working directly with the stressor, making sure that we're not ignoring our stress and we're not obsessing on it. How many people worry? Raise your hand if you worry. You should all be raised. Yeah. We worry. We worry for a reason. When we have our books in our hands, I don't care how young you are, how strong you are, what good genes you have, your books will wear you down. And we get into that negative worry loop. We have lots to worry about. They're not going anywhere. We just want to set them to the side so we can find solutions for them and also be able to have a better perspective to them. Somebody put something in here. In seminary school, they call it ministry of presence. I love that. Thanks for sharing that. That's beautiful. Thank you. So when we work directly with our stressor, we're more focused on finding solutions or figuring out how to take care of ourselves with that. Knowing our breaking point, one of the sayings that I've come up with through these years is that cars are smarter than people. When cars run out of gas, they stop. When we run out of gas, we keep going and wonder why we get sick. Would you ever put a Post-it sticker on your empty sign and say, I'll deal with you later? No, we have to stop and get gas. So I want you to stop and realize, and we'll be talking about that. How do we know that we're on empty, or we're getting close to empty, or we're in the negative, right? Oh, thanks, Allison. I'm going to get some water. I got some water here. So you have to stop and get gas. Right? Wasn't that sweet? My wife got me water. Thank you, Allison. So, knowing our breaking point, but we have to be aware. We have to reflect on our own behavior, reflect on ourselves, because so many times we get into our own guinea pig wheel and we don't stop and pay attention. We get in our guinea pig wheel, we go, 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 and then by the end of the day, we're all cramped up with our shoulders wrapped around our ears and that constipated look on our face, and we wonder why we're exhausted and overwhelmed, and all we want to do is go to bed and drink, right? It's because we don't stop and pay attention along the path. And we're going to talk about how to stop and pause, and what do you need to do to refill your gas? Do I need to take a 5-minute walk? Do I need to drink water? Do I need to talk to somebody that I have conflict with? Do I need to, meditate for a minute? It doesn't have to be 2-hour boot camp and 2-week vacation. It can be a minute here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes here, something every day to make sure that you keep balanced. Someone said, I'm sure I have no idea what you speak of, Loran. Somebody says, when I ran out of gas, I called AAA. I love it. I wish I'd love to call AAA and say, hey, I need some help. And then being aware of our old patterns of thoughts and behaviors that might not be healthy for us, right? But we have to have emotional maturity, what they call EQ. We have to have some emotional maturity to say, hey, you know what I just did was not I'll give you an example. After my technological meltdown, I had a phone call with AT&T. They had raised my bill for the 20th time. They had lied to me about not going to be raising my bill. And I just had the meltdown, and I got somebody on the line, and I gave them a mouthful. And I was ranting for 2 minutes at least. And then all of a sudden I went, oh, wait. He didn't deserve that. I don't know what's going on in his life. Of course, I had every reason to be upset. There's nothing wrong with that, but it was inappropriate. My behavior was inappropriate. And I had to reflect on that behavior and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to take that out on you. Yes, I'm upset about it, but it's not your fault. I apologize. And he was like, that's okay. It was okay, but we don't know what people are going through. He didn't know what I was going through. It's that, again, when we carry our books around, we don't share with people what's going on with us. How you doing? Fine. Oh, I'm doing great. When all this other stuff is going on underneath, right? All this other stuff is going on underneath. So we need to reflect on our own behavior. And do we need to change? If I say something inappropriate with Allison, I said something because I'm upset about something. I'm triggered. That rational, logical adult part of my brain is not in the right place. I'm acting like that 5-year-old and not the cute kind. And then I say something nasty to her. And then, you know, at that moment, I can't apologize, but I'll come back later and say, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. That wasn't fair to say that to you, right? Somebody said being accountable, apologizing is so important, and living in my values. Yes, exactly, right? So working directly with those stressors, being solution oriented, knowing your breaking point, knowing when you need to refill your gas tank when you're out of balance, and changing those old patterns of thoughts and behavior are really important. I use an example of when assessing my stress. Where am I at right now? How am I doing? And this is another thing I want you guys to write down. It's called CIA. It's an acronym for check in and adjust. And what that means is I want you to check in and adjust once an hour, and you do not have to stop work to do it. Thank you for writing it in there, Pastor Dan. Check in and adjust. CIA. Thank you, Pastor Dan. What check in and adjust is that it is assessing your stress levels. How are you doing right now? Am I distracted? Am I overwhelmed? Am I irritable? Do I have conflict going on with somebody? Do I have pain somewhere? Do I need to stretch? Do I need to take a 5-minute walk? Do I need to reassess the situation? Constantly seeing where we're at. And what that does is it keeps me aware of my own health and well-being, keeps me responsible for my behavior, my perspective to my books, and it can affect my relationships. Because I'm in that adult part of my brain. I'm not acting like a child, right? So when we check in, I use the example of walking on a tightrope or a balance beam. When you walk on a tightrope, or when you see somebody walk on a tightrope or a balance beam, do they walk a straight line? No, they're constantly balancing where they're at. If they go a little to the left, they come back to the center. If they go a little to the right, they come back to center. If they go too far, what happens? They fall, and it's harder to come back, right? And what happens is that there was a woman in one of my classes that who was about in her 40s, and she had a stroke at 26. She was overworked, she was overschooled, she was in a toxic relationship, and she wasn't paying attention to any of the signs. And if she did stop to pay attention, she was too busy to do anything about it. If you have any of the symptoms I'm going to talk about, don't think you're going to go here. There's lots of other variables involved, but her headaches, she started out with headaches, turned into migraines, the heart palpitations, anxiety. She had a stroke. She was in a coma for 6 months. Did she fall off her tightrope? Yes. Did it take her a while to come back? Yes. If she caught it at a headache, would it have made a difference? Maybe. So that's where assessing our stress levels is important. Where are you at? And when somebody dances in learning this habit, how do you remind yourself to do this when you're beginning? It takes practice. You're not used to checking in with yourself. I would tell when Allison was working her other job and she was worked 6 hours, did you check in? No. Did you check in? It takes practice. How long does it take to change a habit? 21 to 30 days. Give yourself 21 to 30 days to start practicing this at first, or sometimes even setting an alarm and just saying once an hour, oh, I got to check in and adjust. How am I doing? Use Post-it notes. I love it. Okay, so we're going to do a little check in and adjust right now. So I want everybody to take everything out of their arms. And I want to check this message before we get started here. Let's see what we got. Ask your friends to support you. Yes. I have a couple friends who I ask about the quality of our relationship regularly, who have my permission to tell me when I need to get grounded. Yes. Have accountability buddies. Check in with each other. Wonderful. Yeah, it's important. Really is. So everybody take everything out of your hands. Thank you for sharing that. Put your feet flat on the ground. Figuratively and literally put your books to the side. Figuratively, take the books that you have in your arms and figuratively and literally put those to the side. I love it. I'm seeing the visuals. Okay. So what we want to do is get into our senses. Don't be, we have mental chatter going on all the time. We have 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, 200 billion brain cells. It's hard to shut it up, but we want to bring that volume down. And when we get into our senses, we bring that volume down. Okay? So we want to put our books to the side and just get into right here, right now. Don't be thinking of past. Don't be thinking about the future. Be right here, right now. And I want you to think about how your feet feel on the ground, not the thought of your feet on the ground, but how do they feel? Are they hot? Are they cold? This is a reflective question. Are they painful? Are they pain-free? Are they relaxed? Are they tense? How do they feel? And just get into your senses. And if you start to bring your books back again, just push those to the side for me. And then what I want you to do is imagine going up the back of your leg muscles, the back of your back muscles, up to your neck and shoulder and facial muscles where we store a lot of our tension. How do they feel? Don't judge it, just be curious, be the witness. Are they relaxed? Are they tense? Are they painful? Are they pain-free? Are they hot? Are they cold? Just be curious. And then what I want you to do is take a deep breath into your belly, into your chest, into the top of your head. Hold for 5 seconds. And let it all the way out. And on that exhale, let everything relax, your neck, your back, your shoulders, just get heavy in the chair. And one more deep breath into your belly, into your chest, and the top of your head. Hold for 5 seconds. And let it all the way out. On that exhale, let everything relax, your neck, your back, your shoulders, get heavy in your chair. Okay. That was a formal check-in and adjust. You don't have to do that every hour, but what you'll start doing is that you start to reflect and go inside to see how you're feeling. And from there, you can make your adjustments to get back on your tightrope or your balance beam, because once you're off balance, now you're in trouble. And if you ignore it or obsess on it, you're going to fall. And once you fall, you might not come back as easily, right? So check in and adjust once an hour. And I can do this right now. How am I feeling? Well, I'm shallow breathing, or I've got a little pain here. Maybe I need to stretch out, or I'm a little overwhelmed by my PowerPoint, so I'm going to step away from a minute, or I need to resolve some conflict with somebody, so it's not at one of my books, right? I'm constantly looking, ideally, to get into that balance. And that will help your health and well-being. It helps your perspective to your books, and it helps your relationships. Okay? Did anybody find that helpful? Did anybody find it uncomfortable? Well, some people find it uncomfortable because it's we're not used to slowing down. We're not used to bringing down the pace a little bit. We're used to going. So it's hard to do sometimes. So if you practice it, the more you practice it, the better you get. Okay. Now, before we get into this, I want to share with you one more tool that I use a lot. Somebody was saying Levi had to leave. Tell him thank you so much for joining us, Cademan. I appreciate it. I hope he's doing okay. Put in a good prayer for him. One of the things I want to share, I used to work with San Diego City schools with kids that got in trouble with drugs and alcohol, gangs, violence. They were doing really poor, they were failing in school. They were making lots of trouble. And they were they stupid? Not at all. They just had way too much stress on their plate and they didn't know how to deal with it. So we did this one technique called upshifting. I call it the brain lift. It's a brain hack that gets you back into that rational, logical adult part of your brain, and it calms down that fight or flight response. Everything that we do is calming down the fight or flight response and helping you to refill your gas tank. Right? So what I want you to do, normally I do a little activity live, but we can't do it today with we'll do it another time when we do a live training, hopefully. But everybody just take your right hand and put it flat on your forehead for me. And what that does is when we're under stress, that rational, logical, adult part of the brain shuts down. That blood goes into other parts of the brain and your arms and legs so you can run or fight. So what this does is helps you to stop, pause, and breathe, right? It brings that blood back to that rational, logical part of the brain so you can be more solution-oriented, so you have more energy, so you have clarity. Instead of exhausted and overwhelmed, you can be empowered and solution-oriented. Take another deep breath into your belly, into your chest, and the top of your head, and let it all out and put those books to the side again. Because I bet you some people have already picked them back up. And then just shake it out, shake it out. All right, you guys look all refreshed like you just got back from vacation or something. Woohoo! So some more things that we want to watch during COVID-19 is limit our exposure to media. We want to be informed. We want to be abreast of things that are going on, but we don't want to be overwhelmed by it. It can keep us in that negative worry loop. Know the facts, make sure we're getting them from reputable sources. Make sure we're staying connected with family and friends if we can virtually. It's really important that we do that. And do something that brings you joy. What brings you joy? I love playing with my animals. I love watching movies with my wife. We love walking in the neighborhood. I love going down to the beach. It was the first time we went down to the beach the other day, and we went down to Coronado and had the best time. And we just sat there with our little masks on, and nobody was around too much at all, and just enjoyed the scenery and the everything. It was great. So do something that brings you joy. Now, the last thing I'm going to talk about is being mindful of your self-care. Make sure you're exercising, getting enough sleep, eating well, getting support, and doing some kind of a meditation or relaxation techniques, right? Somebody said, photography, sunrises, sunsets, bonfires. Nice. I bake banana bread daily. Wonderful. Does your bread have any nuts? I love it. Eating well is really important. Food can be poison, food can be medicine, right? Food can be poison, food can be medicine. If I eat Big Macs and Snicker bars all day, I'm going to be cranky and lethargic. If I eat green leafy vegetables, cut down on my sugars, cut down on my caffeine, wash those bad fats, I have more energy and I have a better attitude. Really watching what we eat. If you're not used to eating well, give yourself a break to just do a little bit at a time. Just start cutting down on sugars. Maybe start adding more green leafy vegetables in, organic ideally, if we can do that. It doesn't have to be, Big Macs and Snickers to vegan, or exercising doesn't have to be couch potato to 2-hour boot camp. It's little incremental changes to make sure you're successful. Set yourself up to be successful, and it will build that foundation for you, right? Making sure you're getting plenty of sleep, making sure you know your limits, getting your support, and doing relaxation techniques. And that's it can be anything from bringing yourself, doing something that you enjoy doing, to listening to music, to dancing, to meditation apps, right? And there's some really great meditation apps online that are cheap, they're free, and easy to use. It's pretty nice. When somebody said there's a great meditation app for smartphones called Insight Timer. Yes, I have. It has pre-recorded guided meditations around every top, and from 3 minutes up to an hour. That is a great one. I love Insight Timer. I have to like the person's voice or I won't listen to it. So I'll switch around and find other things too in that. So thanks for sharing that. That's great. Another one is Headspace, Stop, Breathe, Think. There's all sorts of great meditation apps. There's sleep apps that are wonderful too. Just doing something every day to put yourself on your own calendar. We have 1,440 minutes a day and they go like that, right? They can go pretty quickly. Okay, and also shutting our technology down. Technology, I love my technology. I can call anybody, I do my business on it, but we never shut it up, right? I have this one saying that says, my phone died today. I spent some time with family. They seem like really nice people. I love to just talk about putting our phones down every once in a while, shutting things off and taking a little break, right? Oh, Lee said the calm meditation is good too. That's wonderful. Put yourself on your calendar. Yes, wonderful. Thanks for sharing all that. I was gonna share. Let me see. I have a couple other things I want to share with you guys before we finish. The next part is the action plan. Like I said, unless you take something we talked about today and utilize it, it's like putting an aspirin on your head and thinking it's going to help your headache. So when those things that you wrote down, I have the ones that I want you to really think about are putting your books to the side, deep breathing, hand on the forehead, which is the brain lift, and CIA. Those things, if you just started doing just those things, which are easy to do, they're simple, they're fast, they didn't cost you anything unless you want to leave me a credit card. But just start with those things even. And then if you wanted to, do a 5-minute walk at lunch or a 5-minute meditation before you go to bed, and start to implement these things into your daily practice, you will start to be able to be more balanced on your tightrope or your balance beam. You'll start to see your relationships change. You'll start to see your energy levels change, your attitude change, and your health. And those are the most important. Somebody said, can you put your Venmo? I've got to check that out before we finish here. But write down, make sure, yes, put your, you can donate. I would love some donations, definitely. Leave your credit card for me. So in that action plan, put those things on your list for me. Make sure you try and practice some of those when you leave here today. They're really easy and practical to do. And then just trying to add in something a little bit every day. And once you do that for 21 to 30 days, it becomes a habit. And now if you don't do it, you're going to miss it, right? You'll miss it. So that's the biggest piece with all this going on. Put yourself on your calendar first. Put the first thing you do in the morning, do something for yourself. Be kind to yourself. Make sure you're doing lots of things to take care of yourself, to be the best that you can be during this difficult time. Okay. All right, I have a fun video for you guys. This is a test, and if you fail this test, you have to take my class over, same time, same place tomorrow. All right, Cademan? All right, you guys ready? I want you to tell me who is stressed out in this video.
It's like a nightmare of swinging at a keel. Hold on, Dad.
Now watch her arms. Her arms are going to go up here in a second. Watch her arms. Watch her arms. Now watch his arms. Watch his arms. That's my favorite part right there. That's my favorite part. Who is stressed out in that video? The dad or the daughter? The dad was. Was the daughter? You guys all failed the test. The daughter is stressed also. She's having a great time. She's got that adrenaline kicked in, and he's wetting his pants. They're both under stress. Stress is a wonderful thing. It gets us into action. It gets us into motion. We just don't want to stay there, right? We just don't want to stay there. I love that video. I watch it all the time. It's like, woohoo, he's having a great time. They're both under stress. We just have to figure out how to calm down that fight or flight response so we can refill our gas tanks. And then we can have that fun stress too, right? All right, so let me get to the next. Oh, it's not gonna end here, hold on. Well, they proceed to go and do it again, is what happens. Uh-oh. Oh my, there we go. Okay, so now I want to end with a little story about a group of boys that I forgot to hide that picture, but there's a group of boys. I want to end with a little story with you guys about a group of boys in New Guinea who are working with an anthropologist, and the anthropologist finds out that the boys love 7-Up. So he said, we're going to do a race, and whoever gets to the end the quickest will win the case of 7-Up. So the boys all line up. They're all excited. The anthropologist says, take your mark, set, go. They start to run, and they start to hold hands. And the anthropologist is like, why are you holding hands? You could have had that 7-Up to yourself. And the boy said, if I can't share it with my friends, what good is it? So I thought we'd end by holding hands. No, we can't do that. There's a pandemic going on. We're not allowed to hold hands. All right, I love it. We're gonna hold hands like this. I love it. That is it. I love it. You guys are great. That is a true story. I love that story. This is the group of boys that happened to. And the reason I bring that up is because when I take care of myself, I can hold your hand. When I do my self-care, when I watch my stress levels, when I watch where I am on my tightrope and my balance beam, I have something to offer to you and to myself. If I don't have any of that. So take really good care of yourselves. We're in the midst of a crisis right now. It's not normal time, and we're not normal right now. Be kind to yourself, be kind to each other, take really good care of yourselves. And I want to wrap this up with any comments or questions. We talked about a lot of different things. We talked about living in the uncertain times that we're going through right now. We talked about how we're impacted by change. We talked about how to develop those resilient mindsets and things that we can do to try and stay more positive or more resilient. And we talked about some really good strategies to reduce stress. And then ideally, getting into action every day, right? Getting into some kind of action every day. So I want to open it up for any questions or any comments or anything. You guys can, Cademan, if you want to unmute people and people want to share anything, I would love it.
Yeah, you all have the ability to manage your own mute button. So if you've got something to share, go ahead and unmute yourself, and we'll just have a few minutes of sharing what was meaningful to you from this, or what did you learn?
Did you guys enjoy it?
Yes, very good.
Great, great. I'm glad.
When you first asked about, when someone says, how are you? Most people say, I'm fine, and they're not really saying the truth. I always say, well, I'm not unwell. And if they don't react to that and think about it, they're not really paying attention and listening.
That is a very true statement, Rich. That's very true. I like that. Exactly. I think too, it's really hard to be positive right now with everything going on. And I forgot to share too. It's like it takes 2 to 3 seconds to attach to a negative thought and 12 seconds to attach to a positive thought. What's easier to attach to? A negative thought. And the reason being is because it might be danger. And if it took us 12 seconds, we'd all be dead from the saber-toothed tiger. It's a wonderful thing, but it takes effort to be positive. It takes effort to be resilient. It takes effort to take care of ourselves every day. And if we don't, we're in trouble, right? We're not kind to each other. We're not kind to ourselves, and we're not the healthiest. So we have to be doing all this stuff to take care of ourselves. So I just want to say to Pastor Dan and to Pastor Cademan and Lee and whoever else set this up, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it so much, and look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday.
Thank you.
Thank you, Loran. We really, really appreciate it.
Good. Glad you guys enjoyed it. Is my wife still on the line? She probably took off.
Thank you, Loran.
She's still here.
He's seen it 100 times.
I wanted to also mention before we start dispersing that we have a resource here at the church called Wellness Recovery Action Plan, WRAP. And it's probably about like maybe a 14 or 15 page self-guided document that teaches a lot of things that you just talked about, by helping us to identify what do we look like, what do we feel like, what are our lives like when we're well.
Yes.
And what are the kinds of things that we recognize trigger us or put us in unwell spaces, or you would say the flight or fight response. And then it also walks the individual filling out the booklet through the process of writing an action plan, like you've just mentioned, and recruiting people and who they'll recruit and what they'll say to them to be a part of their wellness team. And so that's
wonderful.
Yeah, so we've offered it as a class here before at the Met. It's been a couple years, but I have the document that anyone is welcome to. You can just ask me for a copy of it, or I can send it to you by email anytime for you to fill out.
Thank you, Cademan. That's a good resource available, because like I said, everything is magnified right now. People are really struggling, and people don't always want to share that they're struggling, and so many of us feel guilty about it, or like we're not strong enough or young enough or old enough or experienced enough. It's just too much. That's the paradigm shift.
Yeah,
and to do the best that we can do right now, and getting that support.
Yeah, I find that recognizing that we feel guilt or shame for being in the condition that we're in can often be the barrier to just doing the things that would help us not be under such stress. So I really appreciate this teaching. Yeah. I offer myself as available to anyone to chat or discuss things with as you want. Non-judgmental, safe space. I think Dan is another person who's open and willing to being in touch. Yeah. So.
Nice.
Any final comments from you, Dan?
I'm reminded that we're not alone in this, and that it's a beautiful thing to realize that there's strength when we can be honest with each other and we can encourage each other. And so in a sense, this became a support group, even in this hour. And I'm grateful for all of you on the journey. And one thing that struck me is the importance of positive self-talk. I find myself, and I heard myself a couple times today, calling my actions or things, the word stupid came out of my mouth. And I normally don't use that word. Intentionally, I don't like to use that word. And so I thought, oh, there's an opportunity. The CIA helps me check in even to things like that. So great tool.
Good. Little reflection. That's always good. Well, and I can stay online too for a little bit. Otherwise, like I said, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. I really enjoyed it. And again, like I said, I look forward to seeing you guys on Sunday and continuing the conversation.
Thank you so much, Loran. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
See you Sunday.
Namaste.
Have a great evening. I'll stick around and leave the space open for a couple minutes if anyone wants to chat with Loran.
And happy birthday, Rich.
Thank you.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Rich.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Rich.
Today is your birthday. It's my birthday.
It's Paul
too.
McCartney's birthday too.
Is
Paul
it?
McCartney's birthday.
Wow.
Well, you guys look so much alike too. That's always good.
Well, that means I look like I'm
Compliment.
78. He's 78.
No, you look much younger, Rich. Much younger.
So much fun.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Allison.
Thank
It's
you.
great
Good
to
night,
see you.
everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
What a
Thank you
blessing.
so much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Mary.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you made it.
Yeah, that was great. Thank you so much.
Hi, Mary.
Hi. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mark. I will call you tomorrow.
I
Yeah,
can
well-
really relate. My life is full of stress in the last year, and it's been very, very difficult to find ways to de-stress myself and get rid of a lot of anxiety. So this is really helpful.
Yes, yeah, it has been a stressful time, hasn't it?
Mm. My stress turns usually to anxiety. So I've been working a lot with my doctor about it, and it's been a real challenge for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Mary. Anxiety is one of my issues too, and my anxiety has been higher. I have been able to maintain it for many years, and right now it's a lot higher. And there's the physiological reason just for that is because when we're in that fight or flight for a long period of time, this system is, everything is speeded up, and that's the central nervous system is part of that speeding up of, and that's why the anxiety is higher. So that meditations, exercise, and whatever else you're doing with your doctor is really helpful, because that can be overwhelming just in itself, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so lots of prayers for that.
I'm hoping to get back to yoga at some point,
Yes.
that really helped me a few years ago when I went through my transition. It was extremely helpful.
I find too that I'm finding a lot of things online that I can't do in person. I will try and find things online, like exercise apps or meditation apps or yoga apps. I don't know if that's helpful for you, but either that or, like you said, until things open up and you can get back into a good yoga class, that's always the best.
Yeah, there's nothing like it.
I was just reading that Nikki Zapp was saying that she went to, Cademan took her to the roller coaster at Balboa Park, and we both laughed through the stress. I love it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I have a video.
You know that roller coaster is as old as my grandmother, when she was 16 years old, used to ride that thing.
Wow.
So it's been around for many years. So yeah,
it's a local favorite of mine.
It's
ever since I found out about it.
Does it give you a little neck?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Neck issues?
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't give me pain. It gives
What's
like when the hair stands up from a thrill.
Oh, it's got a pretty good little drop on it.
Yeah. What were you showing, Dan?
What was that, Pastor Dan?
The Insight. I downloaded it.
Insight Timer. Nice.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yeah, that one's really a good one.
Yeah.
Allison tell me, put something on from Insight Timer. I'm like, oh, you got to download that app on your own so you can do that every once in a while.
And the first thing here, Mary, is learning to meditate. Coping with anxiety, managing stress, improve your sleep. And there's one called For the Advanced. That'll be interesting.
I will definitely download that.
Yeah, it's a good one.
It is, yeah. I agree with that.
There's one. Allison, what's that one that we listen to? Yoga Nidra. It's a night meditation that's really helpful for us. It's pretty intense. Kind of gets into a real deep level. It's called Yoga Nidra, and you could put that in search, and that'll come up for that one too. It's pretty good.
Thank you. I was wondering, Loran. I think Allison left the call. I don't see her.
She did. She's right behind me.
Okay. It's one thing that I find just noteworthy, and I don't mean it as a criticism of this not working or anything, because I totally believe in it. And I recognize that sometimes the more layers of stress there are simultaneously, the more difficult it is to actually do the practices and recognize that you're in the fight or flight mode.
Yes.
And things really are that urgent. Like when we talk about Black folks' lives right now, like it's not quite safe always to take a moment and breathe and put, like to de-stress. Like you really are hustling for life. And I think that sometimes like with people with chronic illnesses or disabilities, or who are trans or LGBT, all kinds of different life experiences that come with an extra layer of like bigotry or oppression or prejudice. Those create a stress that's not just a response to stress, but those are real threats against our safety. And so it's so interesting for me to have actually learned that even then, when it does feel like life and death to me, I can still do the practices because it's really not life and death.
Well, in some situations it is though, right? So
In some.
like I was saying, that stress, that fight or flight response is a wonderful tool. If you didn't have it and somebody was chasing you down the street, you would just go, oh, la li la, put my hand on my forehead and then be dead, right? So you have to be able to run quickly and pull that car off the child when the, you know, you hear about the lady who pulls the car off of the child, or somebody who's been able to run from a situation because the adrenaline gets so kicked in, and it keeps us alive in those kind of situations when there is an actual threat. But once that threat is gone, then we have to calm it down. But the tool is a wonderful tool. And like you said, people that are in that place, they need to be in that place. That's when it's useful. And when it's not useful, we need to figure out how to calm it down. When you go to that safe place, when you're not running, you know, in a bigotry situation, or where there's, you know, you're fearful for your life or your safety, you don't want to be calm.
You got to be alert.
You got to wait to where you're safe, and then you can calm down. But not in that situation. That's the whole purpose of fight or flight. So thank you so much for bringing that up. That's really poignant and important.
We teach a class here on occasion called Creating a Life That Matters. And there's a section in there about fear. And they present 2 different acronyms of what fear can stand for to basically express what you're saying. Like sometimes it's very necessary and sometimes it's just a reaction. And so they say one of them, when you're in real danger, is fear stands for forget everything and run. And then in other situations, it could be false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
And I always thought that's really helpful as a way to think things through.
It is. And the acronym is, you know, depending on where you're at. I think what also what you were sharing is that sometimes when we have those multiple stressors going on at the same time, it's hard to have a clarity of where you're really at, you know, because we have so much going on that we're so overwhelmed, we're not thinking clearly at all. And that's even with, you know, it's like that's wearing the pants at that time, and we don't have the pants on and going, I need to be reflective and stop and pause and pay attention. We're not there because we're just in that overwhelmed place. And then, you know, then like I said, we can say something inappropriate, do something inappropriate, not take the best care of ourselves because we're just not thinking straight, right? You know, that was a little bit different on that conversation that you brought up, but that's a really good point.
What was the second one, Cademan, for the fear?
False evidence appearing real.
That struck with what Loran said to me earlier, that stress is a response to perceived demands and pressures. You know, so the mind really makes such a big difference in our head.
Well, and because the stress is not going anywhere, in fact, it might get worse. We're the ones that have to change.
Yeah.
Right.
So we need to say, is it really as bad as I'm making it right now?
And it could be, but it's like, what do we do with it? What's our reaction or response to it? You know, might be different, hopefully, ideally, because sometimes I do really well with it and other times I don't do well at all. And I want to throw the covers over my head and stay in bed, you know, or whatever, because I'm struggling. And that's okay too. I just don't want to stay there, you know, then I'm in trouble, you know, and like I said, I have to practice what I preach or I am in trouble. Allison wants me to leave the house.
Yeah, right.
She's right here. She's standing right here listening to me. Get you into that picture.
You know, she's giving herself such a bad rap this thing, right? But it's really just, no, that was a mirror and everything she said was the reverse.
I think sometimes those are the best relationships.
Those are the best, really. Well, we're going on 17 years and we still like each other most of the time.
Most of the time.
Depends on the day.
Well, my mom once said to me, I've always loved you, but I didn't like you from the time you were like 14 to 25. And I was like, well, it's mutual.
Well, that was honest.
Right? That was way after the fact, but.
All right.
The difference between loving and liking each other, and it's nice when you get both.
Exactly, exactly. Well, again, I want to say thank you so much. I've got to go take my dog for a walk, but I just wanted, I enjoyed it. I had a great time, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime.
Yeah, we'll talk soon. Thank you so much, and have a great evening.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Cademan, for setting that up. Take care.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay, bye for
Bye-bye.
now.